Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Couch Coaching. I'm Vincent. This is Jimmy. We're breaking down the fourth and final quarter of the season for the Dallas Cowboys. And right now, the Cowboys, they're still in playoff contention, but they are struggling. Right now, their record is 6-6, but they still have their own. They have their destiny in their own hands. But they got a lot of work ahead of them.
Well, when you look at it, they've only got one more conference game left. One more divisional game left, and that's Washington on December the 30th.
Which is the last game, right?
Right. So, Washington and, Dallas are right there neck and neck. When it comes down to both having a shot, depending on what the New York Giants do.
Yeah, because right now Dallas is again Dallas is 6-6, and Washington, which plays the Monday night game, we're filming it on Monday afternoon.
Right.
They're 5-6. So if Washington wins this game,
now they'll be 6-6.
They'll be 6-6. But then if they win the game, they'll bring the Giants even closer to both the Dallas Cowboys and themselves.
Right.
So that can make it real interesting for the entire division as a whole.
Right, because that division hasn't solidified itself like most other divisions. You think about the AFC North, the AFC South, the NFC North, NFC South. A lot of these, teams have already clinched.
Exactly.
And you still got other teams that are, going through the bottom of their season now. What that happens then is that really does play a factor if you can start all your team on the week 17 because you've got to have a win or it's a must-win game.
Right.
Or do you rest your starters? So, the more that you don't get ahead, then the worse it's going to be. So, it does open up a lot of different scenarios when you talk about, Washington, if they win tonight,
right,
they're 6-6, and then they have only one more divisional game, and that's, against Dallas on December the 30th. So, It really does actually bring a lot more things in perspective since no one's clinched that edge yet.
And we're going to talk about how the Cowboys got here because this team has been a conundrum for me all year long. I cannot understand. You will never know who's going to show up. They started out the season, defeating the Super Bowl champion New York Giants. Then they go up to Seattle and lay an egg. Well, Seattle is actually a pretty good team. They're a pretty good team. They're right there in the playoff hunt as well. But they lay an egg against Seattle. They squeak by with a win against Tampa Bay. They lay an egg against Chicago. They give up the game against Baltimore. They had that game won. With just poor clock management. They lost another tough one against the Giants. A tough one against the Atlanta Falcons. They barely got by Cleveland. They barely got by Philadelphia the first time, barely got by Philadelphia the second time.
Oh, and here's something interesting. When Washington and Dallas played each other, Washington won.
Right.
So now they hold that tie.
They hold the tie break right now. Right.
Because they haven't played again.
Right.
So, that's also going to play a fact. But, if you look through all these games they've played, everything has been, just barely or over exaggerated on who shows up.
Right, because they have had leads in the fourth quarter in a lot of their games, and they've given up the lead in the fourth quarter. And I don't know if you can blame that on offensive play calling. Part of their problem is that DeMarco Murray has been out for most of the season. So they haven't had their running game's been non-existent.
Right. So when your results are just throwing the ball most of the time, people catch on to that. This is the copycat league. Statistically speaking, Tony Romo has had a good season, but his problem is that he's having to do too much. That's not his problem.
Well,
his problem is because he's Tony Romo.
Well, we know that too.
I think I said this in week one of when we first started doing this whole, couch coaching deal this season. I think I remember talking about how Tony Romo is, in my opinion, he's a great quarterback on paper.
Yeah.
But when you sit there and watch him actually have to manage a game, I don't buy what he's selling.
I just really think that Tony, the offensive line is getting better, but I think what happens is when you have no running game and you have to rely specifically on passing, all we have to do is look at Stafford. and the issues that they had up in.
Well, it's
up
not
in
even
Detroit.
that. I mean, let's
But
look.
He had,
if you look real quick on week 2, Murray was there against Seattle,
right,
and that was 7-27.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
I mean, you look.
He had a ton of turnovers in that game too. I
Hey,
believe.
guess what? Murray was there on that Monday night game too when they got blown out by Chicago.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look through here. He didn't get lost until I think it was week 9.
Yeah.
So I mean, all the other games. I mean, when he was there when they played New York. I mean, they were there when they barely beat Carolina. He was there when they. Well, actually, no, I take it back. He got out on week 6.
Yeah, he's been out since then. He came back this past week. Yeah, he came back this past week.
So I mean, you can look. I mean, he was there, but I mean, it doesn't make a difference.
I think just like I said, I think the problem is, and part of it is Tony. I'm not trying to excuse him from any fault.
Right.
Part of it is him, and I think a lot of it has to do with Jason Garrett and his play call choices. You still got Felix Jones back there. I mean, he's still a comparable back. So you have somebody that can still run. But I think a lot of times they just choose to pass too much. He's dropped back to pass. He's attempted up to this point 483 passes. Now we're in week 12 and he's attempted 483 passes. Now for the full season last year he attempted 522. So he's going to surpass the 522 easily.
Right.
And so when you're passing that much, these type of things can happen.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, let's just look at Andy Reid and the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean,
exactly.
They have a good back, and all they choose to do is pass.
Exactly.
So I mean, when you really look at it, let me ask you this: let's say Cowboys don't make the playoffs this year.
Yep.
Let's just hypothetically say, we still have games left, but let's just say they don't make the playoffs. Is Garrett losing his job?
I don't think Jason Garrett is losing the job, and solely based on the facts and that Jerry Jones handpicked this guy. So I don't think Jerry wants to go against himself and saying that maybe I made a mistake because his ego is not going to let him believe that he made a mistake. You get what I'm saying? Because I think the reason that Cowboy fans may disagree with me or not. But I think Jason Garrett has something to do with the fact that Wade Phillips is not there anymore. I think he kind of, did some shady business with the play calling and stuff like that. It might have been some dissension in the ranks throughout the entire team. Wade Phillips should still be there as the head coach. I'm glad he's here in Houston as a defensive coordinator. But I feel like there was some underhanded stuff going on, and again, I don't think that Jerry Jones would fire Jason Garrett because that would mean that he made a mistake. And I don't think that he wants to admit to that at this point.
I don't think he's ever admitted to anything because didn't he have Walsh there after Jimmy Johnson, left? Wasn't Walsh?
Well, I think it was Switzer.
Was it Switzer or Walsh that was there that took the team to the Super Bowl?
It was Switzer that took him to the Super Bowl. Barry Switzer. He came in right after Jimmy.
Okay, so I mean.
Yeah, but having said that, ever since then, the team has really done nothing. They won a Super Bowl that year, and then they've been up and down. I think they had 1 or 2 playoff appearances since then, and it's been a roller coaster ride. You just never know.
Right.
But we'll go ahead and start talking about their
last game.
Yeah, last games, and their next matchup is going to be against the Cincinnati Bengals.
At Cincinnati.
And this game, look, the killing part about their next 4 matchups is that they are all tough.
Yeah.
Because each one of their opponents is playing for something.
Yeah. Well, except for New Orleans.
Well, New Orleans is still playing for something. They're still alive.
New Orleans is playing for pride is what they're doing.
But they're still alive. They're actually still alive. In the NFC, they're still alive. Whether you want to believe it or not, they're still alive. But we'll talk about Cincinnati first, then we'll talk about New Orleans. So they'll be playing the Cincinnati Bengals, and their record as of right now stands at just give me a second.
7-5.
Yeah, that's 7-5. Thank you, sir. Their record is 7-5, and they are fighting for the AFC wild card spot.
Yep.
And playing up in Cincinnati, and again, the thing about it is that on paper, again we talk about this all the time with the Cowboys. On paper, they ought to win this game pretty easy.
Who?
The Cowboys, on paper.
Yeah.
If you look at their talent, if you put talent versus talent,
right,
they should win.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this game, And I'm looking at the fact that the Cowboys, to me, have a little bit more offense than what Cincinnati does.
Yeah.
Cincinnati doesn't have their running game going yet. They're still relying a lot more on A.J. Green and their wide receivers.
Right.
I think that if the Dallas really, truly buckles down their defense, they should have this game. It's going to be close. I don't see them walking away 21-0.
Right.
But I can see them actually squeezing the Bailey, field goal in at the last minute.
Yeah, to get it at the last second or so. I think it's going to be a close game too.
I mean, if you look, that's what they did against Cleveland too.
Right.
It was 20-23.
Right.
So it was at the last ending seconds of the overtime to get the Bailey field goal in.
Well, I'm going to agree with you that it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to disagree with you on the outcome because the problem will be, and I think the Cincinnati Bengals will win the close game, and I think it's going to be because of Cincinnati's front four and their ability to get pressure on the quarterback.
No.
And
remember though, DeMarco Murray is going to be back.
I know he'll be back, so they should be able to run.
That does actually open up a lot.
Yeah, they should be able to run.
Because from what I saw last night against that Philly front,
right,
he was still able to break off. I mean, he's had a long time. He's been itching to get back, and
right.
I think he's really wanting to run.
Well, so that would probably be the thing that would turn it in the Cowboys' favor. But again, I feel like with those ends that Cincinnati has and their ability to get to the quarterback, Dallas still has not figured out what they want to do or how to get it done on the offensive line. They still haven't figured it out. So Tony's doing a lot of Brett Favre type plays.
Yeah.
And that's what gets them in trouble.
Right.
So and I think it's going to come down to something like that's going to cost them the game. So you're saying that they'll beat Cincinnati.
Yes.
And I think we're both agreeing that'll be a close game.
Right. I don't think either team is going to walk.
Right. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. But I think Cincinnati's going to pull it off at home because it's not like they're the Raiders. Cincinnati's playing for something.
We'll get to them in a minute.
Yeah. I'm sorry. All right. So you say that the Cowboys will beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm saying that the Bengals will beat the Cowboys. Both of us are agreeing it's going to be a close game. Their next opponent will be the Pittsburgh Steelers.
In Dallas.
And in Dallas. And again, these matchups are just, here's another team fighting for a playoff spot. Ben Roethlisberger should be close to 100%. He should be a Roethlisberger.
I'll tell you what, I'll take his 70 over.
Right. So I look, I'm gonna say this because Pittsburgh won that big game yesterday against Baltimore.
Get on their third string.
Right, with their third string quarterback. They won that big game, so they have new life. Troy should maybe back for that particular game.
No, Troy was back last night.
So he'll probably be closer to 100%. Depending on how severe his calf strain, the healing, because he had a calf strain, correct?
Right.
How much that's healed. Hey, look, Pittsburgh's gonna win this game because they got so much. They still have an opportunity to not only host a playoff game and win the AFC North. They got a chance to get a bye.
Yeah.
So.
Well, here's the deal. Regardless if they have a bye or not, or regardless if they host, what this team reminds me of right now is the same team back in 2005.
Yeah.
That went on the road as a 6-seed team
and went on and won a Super Bowl.
went on to win the Super Bowl in Detroit.
So I feel like, I guess we're both agreeing
that Pittsburgh's
going to win this game. I don't know how close or how, because I know the Dallas is at home, but they don't play at home like it's a home field advantage.
Well, you got to understand like this: Steelers fans travel
well. Yeah.
So it does not matter if it's a home game for Dallas or not. There's still going to be many yellow flags flying in the stadium.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you go; it's always going to be like
all
that.
Those terrible titles. You're exactly right.
So really, honestly, you've lost home field advantage because there's still going to be, Pittsburgh fans, waving.
So I think we both agree that Pittsburgh is going to win that next game, and so if things fall as we're saying, the Cowboys would be 7-7.
Yes.
So and then now they'll be 7-7 with you,
right? And
they be 6-8 with me, correct? Because I said they would lose, but if they were 7-7 after that game, if that was the case. They play the New Orleans Saints next. At home.
Mm-hmm.
But just like Pittsburgh travels well, the Saints travel pretty well too, and then a lot of transplant Saints fans are in Dallas also.
Right. Well, my deal is when it comes to Drew Brees, is we haven't seen him how he's reacted to the fact that he's thrown 5 interceptions on Thursday night game.
Right.
Because again, this is Monday night, so we won't see them play until this coming up Sunday.
Right.
So we won't know exactly how he's took that toll because.
And this will be 3 weeks from that last matchup
right.
too as well.
But I mean, if everything goes back to status quo.
Yeah.
Everything goes back. He doesn't have a record that's hanging over his head anymore, trying to pressure him down. He can actually get back to playing football.
Right.
New Orleans should easily win this game.
Yeah.
I actually don't see this being a close game at all. I think with the passing game that New Orleans has against the defense that Dallas likes to run, and I see people running wide open down the field. I really do. I see Colston. I see Graham. I see Moore. I see Sproles just running like crazy. I see Ingram. I mean, I can keep
you can see them doing whatever they want to do against this team. Exactly.
The worst thing that you have is a team who, if things fall in line that they're not going to the playoffs, they don't have anything to lose.
Yeah.
They don't have. So I mean, you're going
to see 4th downs, onside kicks, fake punts, all that stuff.
So,
right.
I mean, and for a team that's trying to get into the playoffs, you don't want to see that because now you've got to adjust your whole play calling.
Right.
So I mean, I can honestly see New Orleans easily walking away with this one.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one too. I think that New Orleans have too many offensive weapons for this particular defense. And I don't know. Again, will the Cowboys be able to score on New Orleans? Yeah, they'll be able to score.
Because that defense is suspect at best.
But the thing is, all you need is one hiccup against that team. Against the Saints when they score in bunches.
Right, which I can actually remember. That was one thing a lot of people would say about Peyton Manning when he played with the Colts.
Yeah,
is that look, I don't care what we do as long as we stay on the field and limit his options as much as possible. I mean, look at this year for example. When Pittsburgh went up there and played, Pittsburgh ran the clock. I mean, out of 60 minutes, they had the ball for like 35.
Right.
There was one drive that they went 80 yards and took up most of the second quarter. What did Peyton Manning do? Go right out there, 2 plays later, made a touchdown. An 80-yard touchdown pass to Thomas.
And then they started running that hurry-up offense, and those are the kind of things that these quarterbacks, these elite, look, Drew Brees is truly an elite quarterback.
Right.
People throw that elite around a lot, but he is truly in the top 5.
Right.
And look, the thing about it is, whether the Saints have a chance to go in or not at this point in the season, they're still going to play hard.
Yeah, they're still. I mean, there ain't nobody because
they would love nothing more than to keep another team from going.
Right, because that would just make their day even better.
Exactly. So I think we both agree that New Orleans will win that game.
So I've got them going 1-2 or 1-3.
Yeah.
And you got them going.
No, you have them going. You said they'll beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, beat Cincinnati. That's 1. So they're 2-1. They're 2-1 right now.
Right, 2-1, and I have them going 1-2. Yeah. So then we have Washington, and this game could decide who goes. Not only could this game decide who goes to the playoffs, it may even decide who wins the NFC East.
All right. Well, this reminds me of last season. When it came down to the New York Giants
and the Dallas
Cowboys again.
Right.
So depending on how everything plays out, this again, and you're playing at Washington. You're going to Washington. For a team who has not been in the playoffs in a long time, if it actually comes down to the point that Washington is playing for a playoff spot, you can guarantee that stadium is going to be crazy.
Right.
And with Robert Griffin III doing what he's been doing all season,
Pierre Garçon will be completely healthy by then. I mean, look.
You've got not only one of the best wide receivers on that team with Pierre Garçon. You've got the top 5 running back in Alfred Morris.
Right.
And not only that, you also have you have a top 10 running back and a quarterback.
Right.
So I mean, it's just. I mean, you're.
It's gonna be all out. It's gonna be all out bedlam, and I feel like at this could be the defining moment for the season. Because again, the thing about it is you work so hard just to get into the tournament. You know, and we're talking about the playoffs.
Right.
So you work so hard to do that. And if it comes down to them having to beat Washington to either get into the playoffs, because they might be battling, not only battling for the NFC East, they could actually be battling for the last playoff spot.
Right.
And if Washington is the last team to stand in their way, and Washington's battling for the same thing, I feel like Washington will win that game.
I mean, you go back and see right up here when they played them. It was where was it? Oh, it was week 12.
Right.
Now, DeMarco Murray wasn't there, but it was 38-31.
And they were able to get the big plays over the top.
Right, and that's the thing right there is that defense for Dallas was not able to control.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I can look at the. I'm not gonna be able to
look.
The
box score.
Yeah, because I don't know what the. I mean, how many rushing and everything else was going on in that game.
See, what happened is that just a minute. They got out. I'm sorry. The Washington Redskins got out on them early with the big plays that they had. If I can just get it to come on up here. So the Redskins, the score was now this is crazy. The score after the first quarter was the Cowboys 3-0. In the second quarter, Washington scored 28 unanswered points.
Wow.
In the second quarter, 28 unanswered. So that big quarter is actually what ended up winning the game for them. And again, these were all big plays. You know, Robert Griffin threw a touchdown pass. This was in the second quarter, the beginning of the second quarter. He threw a 68-yard touchdown pass to Aldrick Robinson. Then Alfred Morris ran it for 1-yard touchdown. Then Pierre Garçon scored a 59-yard touchdown pass, and then they had another 6-yard pass to Santana Moss. And all that happened in that particular quarter. But again, you know, Niles Paul had a 29-yard touchdown pass. These are big plays.
Right.
And when your defense is susceptible to those kind of plays, and again on top of that, just like you were talking about earlier about Alfred Morris, you know, in the first game he had 113 yards, but he averaged. The killing part about it is, I'm not so much concerned about the 113 yards. What concerns me is the 4.7 yards per carry.
Right.
Because that's almost half of a first down every time he touched the ball. Same thing with RG3. He had 6 carries for 29 yards, which was 4.8. When you got people carrying the ball like that on you, that makes you susceptible to the big play. Exactly.
Yeah, you're susceptible to the play action because that's going right over the top.
Exactly. So I think we both feel like that the Washington Redskins would win that last matchup, and you know the Cowboys will probably be at home watching the playoffs like we will be.
You will be.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for this session of Couch Coaching. And again, if you liked anything or had any comments, leave it at the bottom of the page. And also, you know, check us out on Couch Coaching 12 at Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook. Just leave your comments at the bottom.
Yeah, leave comments at the bottom, and hey, we'll see you in the playoffs. Peace.